Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. I wasn't even hungry when I pulled into the lot, just tired. I'd been driving for hours, the kind of stretch where time dissolves and the highway starts to feel like a looping fever dream. I didn't even remember passing a town, just trees, fog, and then suddenly a glowing sign through the mist. Eddie's 24-hour grill, always open, always home. The neon buzzed, bright enough to stain the inside of my windshield in pulsing reds and yellows. My headlights flickered once as I cut the engine. No other cars in the lot, not one. But the diner's interior lights were on, casting that warm, sterile glow you only get from ancient fluorescents and polished chrome. I told myself I'd just grab a coffee, maybe stretch my legs, maybe get a few minutes of normalcy before I push through the last 3 hours home. The bell above the door jingled when I stepped inside. Not a normal jingle either, more like the sharp clink of metal on metal. I blinked. The air smelled like burnt bacon and floor wax. It was warm, too warm. The waitress was already waiting behind the counter, a notepad in hand like she'd seen me coming 10 miles out. Early 30s, maybe. Hair in a tight blonde bun. Makeup like a 1950s ad. Perfect red lipstick and dark eyeliner that didn't smudge even in this heat. She smiled. "Welcome to Eddie's," she said, chipper, like a voice from an old radio ad. "Seat yourself. Menus are already at the booths." Something in her eyes didn't match the smile. Not unfriendly, just rehearsed, like she'd said it 1,000 times without really knowing what it meant anymore. I picked a booth near the front window. The pleather was cold, sticky. There was a small stain on the seat across from me that looked like dried syrup or blood. The jukebox in the corner rolled out a scratchy doo-wop tune I couldn't quite place. Something about summer nights and lost love. A laminated menu sat perfectly centered on the table. No prices, just item names. House Stack, Diner Deluxe, Sunrise Special, Night Shift Special. No descriptions, just names. Some in bold, some in italics. None of it made sense. There was an item at the bottom called The Last Meal. No font, just plain text. That one gave me a chill for no reason I could name. The waitress was suddenly at my side, notepad ready. I didn't hear her walk up. No footsteps, no shadow. She was just there. "Coffee?" she asked. "Sure," I said. She poured it from a pot that must have been prepped before I came in. The coffee was scalding, black as engine oil, and smelled faintly like cinnamon. "You ready to order?" she asked, still smiling. I glanced at the menu again. My eyes drifted to Night Shift Special. "I'll try the night shift," I said. Her pen didn't move. She just nodded and walked away. No confirmation, no good choice, just a turn of the heel and back to the counter. That's when I noticed the cook, back behind the open counter window in the kitchen. He was tall, slender, wore a stained white apron that hung off him like a curtain. His skin looked off, not quite pale, but like it had been dusted with flour or ash. His face was expressionless, jaw slack, and he was staring right at me, not at the grill, not at the waitress, at me. He didn't move, didn't nod, didn't blink. I sipped the coffee, immediately regretted it. Too hot, burned the roof of my mouth. It didn't matter. It tasted perfect, like the best coffee I'd ever had. Warmed me from the inside, settled into my stomach like it had always been there. I blinked. He still hadn't. A man sat 2 booths over, middle-aged, heavy-set. He looked like someone who'd once had a big life but was slowly fading out of it. He had a half-eaten plate of eggs in front of him and stared into his coffee like it might start whispering secrets. Another customer, a young woman maybe in her 20s, sat at the counter, slowly peeling the label off her bottle of cola. Her leg bounced under her stool like she wanted to run, but had forgotten how. No one talked, just the soft scrape of cutlery, the buzz of the sign outside, and the faint hiss of the grill. I started to feel weird, like the warmth in the diner was starting to sink into my bones. Not comforting warmth, more like a fever. My skin prickled. I reached for my phone to check the time. 2:47 a.m. Weird. I could have sworn it was later. I checked the clock above the counter. Same time. Frozen. The second hand wasn't moving. Order up. The voice was low and hollow. It came from the kitchen. The cook hadn't moved, but there was a plate sitting in the pass-through now. Pancakes stacked neatly, syrup dripping down the sides like sap from a tree. A side of bacon so crisp it shimmered. Scrambled eggs that looked sculpted. Unreal. The waitress grabbed it and set it in front of me with a smile. Enjoy. I picked up the fork. The moment I did, the man 2 booths down twitched, just a little, like something had startled him. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. His eyes were bloodshot, tired, hollow. "Don't eat the eggs," he muttered. What? His voice was louder now, still hoarse. "Don't eat the eggs. Whatever you do, don't." The waitress was beside him in an instant. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her smile didn't falter. Now, Gary," she said. "Let's not make a fuss." He looked up at her, terror in his eyes, but he nodded, slowly, almost like his body was obeying her before his mind caught up. She poured him more coffee. He didn't drink it. I looked down at my plate. The eggs looked fine, smelled fine, but suddenly they felt wrong, like they were watching me, waiting. I touched them with the fork. Nothing happened, but I didn't take a bite. Instead, I stood up and walked toward the door. The bell jingled again when I reached for the handle. Cold metal under my hand. I twisted, pushed. The door didn't open. I tried again, harder, nothing. It didn't even rattle, like it was fused to the frame. I turned to the waitress. "Hey, the door's stuck." She tilted her head. "Oh, hun, we don't close." I didn't say anything about closing. "I'm trying to leave." "We don't close," she repeated, still smiling. "Not ever." Behind her, the cook watched me, unblinking. arms at his sides like a doll on a shelf. I stepped away from the door, heart pounding now. I went to the window. There was nothing outside. No parking lot, no road, just black. Not darkness, black, like someone had painted over the world. I backed up into the booth, suddenly ice cold. Gary was crying softly now. The girl at the counter had stopped peeling her label and was staring at the wall. I asked out loud, to no one, "What the hell is this place?" The waitress walked over, placed a napkin in front of me like everything was fine. She looked down with that same candy-coated smile. "You'll get used to it," she said. "Most do." And then softly, like it was a promise, "Don't blink." I didn't even realize I'd stood up until my knees locked. 1 second I was in the booth, the napkin still folded in front of me like it had been placed there for a funeral, and the next I was up, braced against the table, hands flat on the vinyl, legs stiff like I was expecting something to hit me. My head throbbed faintly, like I'd stood too fast after sitting too long, but I hadn't been sitting long, had I? The air felt off, thicker than before, warmer too. That kind of sweaty, low sky warmth before a tornado touches down. The diner felt like it was leaning in. I looked around. The lights buzzed above me, louder now. The hum of the jukebox looped the same warped doo-wop chorus over and over like a needle stuck in wax. The girl's leg had stopped bouncing. She was completely still, not blinking, not breathing, and the cook was watching me again. He stood behind the service window like a mounted display, and I swear the light didn't touch him the same way it did everything else. His eyes were too dark. They didn't reflect anything, not the neon, not the fluorescence, not even the glint from the metal grill, like the light refused to go in. He still hadn't blinked. 1,000, 1,000. Nothing. I turned to the hallway near the restrooms, my boots soft against the floor. The linoleum didn't echo anymore. It gave slightly with each step like something hollow beneath it was pushing back. The employees' only door was on my left, steel, bolted, chained. I touched the knob out of instinct. Freezing, not cold, unnaturally cold, like touching the handle of a walk-in freezer that's been sealed for a decade. I flinched back and kept moving, jaw tight. The men's room smelled like bleach and rust, light flickering overhead, casting frantic shadows across cracked tile. A warped mirror hung over a chipped sink, off-center, too low, reflecting my chest more than my face. I turned the faucet. Water spat out in fits, rusty red at first. A trickle, then clearer, colder. I let it run over my fingers, needing something real, something normal. Didn't help. The smell alone made me gag, like bleach and something sour beneath it, like the kind of chemical cocktail they use to clean crime scenes. That's when I saw the carvings. The last stall door was covered in deep, chaotic scratches. Angry, desperate. I ran a hand over them, felt how jagged they were, like whoever carved them had used fingernails or teeth before they found something sharper. Don't sleep. Don't eat the eggs. Don't ask the cook. 3 rules, 3 commands. No explanation. Just warnings stacked like they were trying to hold something back. knelt a little, reading the smaller message beneath it, scratched in crooked, shallow strokes like the writer was weak or losing control. Blink and you're his. Something moved behind me. I froze. Every nerve in my spine screamed at me to run, but I didn't. I stood slowly, eyes locked on the mirror. The reflection showed nothing, no one behind me, and yet the light dimmed slightly, like something enormous had stepped into the room and wasn't reflecting in glass. I turned. Nothing. Empty stalls, flickering bulb, white tiles. I backed out of the restroom and pulled the door open with my elbow. The waitress was waiting. No footsteps, no shadow, just her standing outside like she'd grown from the wall. "Everything all right?" she asked. I nodded automatically. "Yeah, just, water was weird." Her eyes flicked past me, toward the mirror in the bathroom. "You look fine," she said. "Pale's a good color on you." She smiled too wide. I brushed past her and walked fast back to the dining room, resisting the urge to sprint. The second I stepped past the counter, I froze again. Gary was gone. His booth sat abandoned, plate cleared, napkin folded, utensils wiped clean and tucked into the tray. But his coffee cup remained, half full, still steaming like he'd just been called away for a smoke break he'd never return from. The seat still had the indent where he'd been sitting. I turned to the waitress. Where the hell did he go? She was already back behind the counter, calmly refilling the sugar shakers. "He left." "No, he didn't. I was gone for like 2 minutes. Some folks leave." "You told me no one leaves." She looked at me for a beat too long. Then, like she was repeating something she hadn't said in years, "It depends on your definition." The room felt tighter. I turned toward the front door and marched over. I grabbed the handle with both hands and pulled, yanked. It didn't move, not an inch, like it was welded to the frame. I looked out the glass and felt my throat close. There was no road, no headlights, no trees. But this time the blackness outside wasn't still. It pulsed faintly, like it was breathing, like the darkness was aware of me and waiting for something. The light from the diner spilled outward, but didn't reach far. Just a thin golden glow fading into that thick, moving nothing. Like the diner was sitting in the mouth of something enormous. The cook stepped out from the kitchen. He made no sound. His apron was soaked down the middle, dark, damp. The stains had grown. He moved to Gary's booth, leaned down, picked up the coffee cup, and then turned to face me. His eyes bored through me, still hadn't blinked. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. The clock still said 2:47 a.m., and I was too scared to look away long enough to check my phone. The cook had disappeared again. The girl with the soda bottle had gone back to scratching the glass with her thumbnail, over and over in the same spot, like she was trying to dig through it. The jukebox in the corner changed tracks. Same voice, same warped vinyl sound, just a different song I'd never heard before. Something low and sad about always coming home but never being missed. The kind of lyrics that crawl into your chest and sit there. heavy. I glanced around at the others. I hadn't really seen them before, not properly. The guy in the hoodie slouched near the window. The older woman 2 booths back with the crossword she hadn't touched. A man with a hearing aid who kept staring at his empty plate like it might give him permission to move. None of them were eating or drinking or talking, just existing like they'd been here a long time, maybe too long. I stood slowly. No one reacted. I crossed the room carefully toward the girl at the counter. Her shoulders tensed as I got close, but she didn't look up. "Hey," I said softly, "you told me not to ask the cook." She didn't answer, just scratched harder. Her nail had split, blood darkened the edge of the bottle, but she didn't seem to notice. "Please," I tried again. "You said you'd rather be a waitress than a meal. What does that mean?" She stopped scratching. Her eyes stayed locked on the bottle as she spoke. "It means there are worse things than wearing a name tag." That answer sat heavy between us. I waited for her to say more. She didn't. So I tried another angle. "What's your name?" Nothing. Then, softly, "Used to be Emily." "Used to be?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were rimmed with red, like she hadn't slept in weeks. "They took it," she said. "The longer you stay, the more it stops belonging to you." I swallowed. "The diner?" Her head shook once, almost imperceptibly. "Not the diner. Him." Before I could ask who, a voice cut in behind me. "First time, huh?" I turned. It was the guy in the hoodie. He hadn't moved all night, but now he was standing, arms crossed, leaning slightly on one foot, like he didn't care much for balance anymore. His eyes were sharp, alert. He jerked his chin toward the empty booth. "You tried to leave, yeah?" "Yeah." He nodded. "We all did. Once." "How long have you been here?" A pause, a slow smile. Not cruel, just resigned. I stopped asking that after the ketchup bottle started refilling itself. I didn't know how to respond to that. He walked past me and slid into a booth, motioning for me to join him. I hesitated, then followed. He reached over to the salt shaker on the table and turned it upside down. The grains spilled out in a slow, even stream, and then stopped. But when he flipped it upright again, it was full. "That started 2 weeks after I got here. Or maybe 2 years. Or maybe I was born here and just dreamed the rest." "You ever see anyone get out?" "Out?" He laughed once, not bitter, not loud, just tired. "Out's a funny word in here." "What about Gary?" The smile vanished. He tapped the table once with his knuckles. "Don't say the names. That's how they disappear faster." "You think saying his name made him vanish?" "No," he said. "I think remembering them does." I leaned forward. "What is this place?" He shrugged. "A waiting room, a test, a trap. Take your pick. We've all got our theories. None of them matter." "What about the cook? Is he running it?" His expression darkened. No, he's just the gate. The gate to what? He didn't answer, just stared past me. I turned to follow his gaze and saw the sleeping man. I hadn't noticed him before. He was in the last booth by the back wall, head tilted sideways, hands folded gently on the table, breathing slow and steady, like he was in a deep, peaceful sleep. The hoodie guy's voice dropped. He's been like that since I got here. He's asleep? Yeah, that's why hasn't the cook? Because he belongs to him now. Then why keep the body? The guy shrugged. Maybe he dreams something the rest of us don't. That's when the crossword lady stood up. Everyone in the diner went silent. Even the girl at the counter froze, her bloody thumb hovering just above the bottle. The woman walked stiffly toward the door. I could hear the faint shuffling of her shoes on the tile. She didn't speak, didn't look at anyone. She reached the handle, tried it. It didn't move. She didn't panic, just stood there for a moment, as if expecting something to happen. Then she turned around, looked straight at me. Her eyes were completely black, not bloodshot, not dilated. Black, top to bottom. She smiled. Her teeth weren't right. Too many. Too flat. And then she said it. It's almost your turn. Then she turned back, walked to her booth, and sat down like nothing happened. No one spoke for a long time. Eventually the jukebox clicked and restarted the same song again. The hoodie guy leaned in, whispering now. When it's your turn, he'll call you by your real name, the one you forgot. I swallowed. I don't know what that is. He nodded. You will. I didn't speak for a while after the black-eyed woman sat down again. Neither did anyone else. Not the hoodie guy, not Emily, not the hearing aid man still staring at his empty plate like it had whispered a prophecy. The jukebox switched tracks again, but the melody was the same, just rearranged, like it couldn't figure out what song it was supposed to be. I slid back into my booth. The eggs were cold now. They'd stopped steaming, but somehow still looked fresh, bright yellow, fluffy, the kind of scrambled eggs you see on TV, not real life. I pushed the plate away. It glided more easily than it should have, like the table was a little too slick, like something wanted me to keep them close. I needed to know more. I needed to understand what kind of trap this was, and I was running out of ways to do it from my seat. So I got up. No one stopped me this time, not even Emily. She just glanced sideways, then went back to scratching her bottle. I moved toward the kitchen window. The cook was gone again, or hiding. I leaned in, trying to see past the heat lamps and stainless steel. Empty, grill off, no sizzling, no smell of grease or onions or bacon, just silence, like a stage set with no actors behind the curtain. There was a swinging door beside the window, kitchen access only. I hesitated, then stepped through. The moment I crossed into the kitchen, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees. Everything was spotless, too spotless. Not just clean, unused, No crumbs, no grease stains, no food. The flat-top grill was cold. The fryer was empty. There were pots and pans hanging above the prep area, but every one of them gleamed like they'd been polished and not a single one had ever touched fire. There were no ingredients out, no prep trays, no cutting boards, but still, the food always came out hot. Perfect. I moved to the far side, where a walk-in freezer stood, with a padlock hanging from the latch. The lock was open, just hooked there, waiting. I paused, took a breath, and opened the door. Cold air rushed out, dry and bitter. But there was no meat, no shelves stacked with frozen boxes, no plastic tubs. Just a dark, narrow corridor carved directly into the back wall of the freezer. It wasn't made of metal or tile. It was organic. The walls pulsed, not fast, not visibly, but I felt it, a slow, rhythmic pressure, like breathing, like blood behind drywall. The hallway disappeared into shadow, and from somewhere deep inside I heard the sound of something wet being pulled apart. I closed the door, fast. My hands were shaking. I backed away from the freezer, turned, and bumped straight into the cook. He was right behind me, closer than should have been possible without making noise. He was tall, taller than I'd realized. Up close, I could see the veins in his eyes, black, not red. His mouth didn't move, but I could feel the air around him humming, like his presence created pressure, interference. I stepped back. He stepped forward. I whispered, "What are you?" He didn't blink. He lifted his hand, one long finger pointing past me, toward the freezer door. I shook my head. No. He tilted his head, not angry, not threatening, just curious, like a scientist watching a mouse hesitate in a maze. That's when I noticed his apron wasn't stained with food. It was wet, fresh, still dripping, and beneath the damp cloth, I saw movement. The apron wasn't hanging right. Something inside it writhed, subtle, slow, but wrong, like something was wearing him. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the exit door behind the kitchen. A bright red sign above it said, "Emergency exit only." It was unchained, unlocked. A key hanging from a nail beside it. My heart hammered. I ran to the door, grabbed the handle, yanked. It didn't open. The sign flickered, then went dark. Behind me, I heard the door to the walk-in click open. I turned. The cook was gone. The corridor behind the freezer gaped like a throat. Cold air pushed out again, this time tinged with something metallic. I backed away, turned fast, and bolted through the swinging kitchen door. Emily was there on the other side. She caught me before I collapsed. Her grip was firm. "I told you not to ask the cook." "I didn't," I gasped. "You looked for answers." Same thing. Behind her, the lights dimmed slightly. The black-eyed woman was standing again, slowly walking toward the back booth. No one else reacted. I looked back at the kitchen. The cook wasn't there, but I could still feel him watching. Emily leaned in. Do you know what's in the eggs? I shook my head. Neither do we, she said. Then she whispered, but some nights they twitch. I didn't sleep, didn't sit, didn't speak. I just stood there next to Emily for what felt like hours, shaking. The air never stopped humming, not loud but deep, like a low chord pressed under the ribs, vibrating through my bones. I kept expecting the cook to step out again, or the freezer door to creak open, or that long hallway of living meat to come crawling out of itself. But nothing happened. The diner just kept existing. Same lights, same song looping in the jukebox, same smell of too fresh pancakes that had never been cooked, the same customers trapped in their routines like flies caught in amber. I sat back down in my booth eventually, not because I wanted to, because I had to. The longer I stayed on my feet, the more the floor felt like it was pulling at me, tugging gently on my heels like it wanted to open up and swallow. My plate was gone. The eggs cleared without me seeing it happen. Just a cup of coffee now, refilled to the brim, still steaming. I didn't touch it. Across the room, the black-eyed woman sat completely still. She hadn't moved in an hour. Then suddenly, she did. She stood, turned toward the back hallway, and walked slowly toward the employees-only door. The one with the chains? They weren't chained anymore. She pushed it open and vanished behind it. The door swung shut with a quiet click, and no one in the diner reacted. No one looked up. Emily walked over and sat across from me, the first time she'd left her stool since I arrived. She looked tired, not sleepy, depleted. "He likes you," she said. I stared at her. "What?" "People like you don't last long. You poke at the edges, ask too many questions. Most folks settle in. You didn't." I swallowed. My throat was dry. My tongue felt foreign in my mouth. "I'm not staying here." Her eyes flicked to the clock. 2:47 a.m. "It's not about staying," she said. "It's about becoming." "Becoming what?" She didn't answer. She just reached across the table and slid the coffee cup toward me. "Last chance to forget," she said, "before he calls your name." I don't even know my name anymore. That's how he'll say it. Then she stood and walked away. I didn't drink the coffee. I stood instead. And no one stopped me. I walked back into the kitchen, slower this time, steadier. The fear was still there, but quieter now, muted, like it knew I wasn't going to run anymore. The freezer door was open again. The hallway inside pulsed, red and dark, flesh-walled, lined with old kitchen tile that bled between the grout. Somewhere deep inside, I heard whispering, a wet, rhythmic chant, but I couldn't make out the words. Only one thing was clear. It was saying something that sounded like me. Not my name, but something I had forgotten, something I'd left behind before I ever walked into the diner. The hallway pulsed again. I stepped forward. The cold didn't bite this time. The air was thick and humid, heavy like lungs filled with fog. The corridor tightened the further I went. Each step forward, the sound of the diner behind me faded. Lights dimmed. Colors bled into red and black. And then I saw it. A door, not the kind you push open. It was a door built into the wall of flesh and stone, carved from wood so dark it almost shimmered. No knob, no hinges, just a slit down the middle and an outline that looked burned in place. Above it, a sign. The exit opens inward. I stared at it. I understood. I reached out slowly and pressed my hand against the wood. It was warm, like skin. The door moved. It didn't swing or creak. It peeled, folding open into the darkness like it was exhaling. The walls around it twitched. A gust of air rolled out, and in it I smelled burnt coffee, grease, dust, cinnamon, my childhood bedroom, the cologne I wore in college, my mother's voice, wordless, and something else. Something older. I stepped through, and behind me, the diner vanished. Emily pours a cup of coffee, sets it gently on the counter. The doorbell above the entrance rings. A new customer walks in, eyes tired, skin pale. He looks around, confused. Emily smiles just a little too wide. "Welcome to Eddie's," she says. "Seat yourself. Menus are already at the booths." Behind the service window, the cook watches. Still hasn't blinked.